The market was cold, loud, and full of strange smells. James pulled his coat tighter as he walked between the alien stalls, steam rising from grills, and alien vendors shouting in sharp, crackling tongues. He had seen many places in the galaxy, but nothing felt as lonely as this cold planet. He was here to sell scrap parts from his old ship. But something kept his eyes moving not towards the stalls, but towards the shadows. Then he saw her. A small alien girl, maybe 6 or 7 in Earth years, was sitting by a broken wall. Her arms wrapped around her knees, her skin was pale blue, thin and sickly, and her dark eyes looked too tired for someone so young. She held out a tiny metal ring to passing traders, whispering, "Buy this." Please. No one stopped. Most just walked past like she wasn't even there. Some looked away, and one even kicked dust at her feet. James frowned and stepped closer. The girl saw him, stood up, quickly walked toward him, clutching the ring. "In both hands, sir," she said, her voice shaking. "Will you buy this?" James crouched down to her level and looked at the ring. It was junk, just a piece of bent wire. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Naya," she whispered. Looking at the ground, "My mom made this before." Before we had to run, he was about to ask more when she suddenly looked up, eyes wide and serious. "Will you marry my mom?" James blinked, stunned. "What?" "If you marry my mom," she said quickly, "they won't take me away. I can stay. I can live." James didn't know what to say before he could speak. Shouting came from behind. 2 alien guards with glowing batons approached fast. "There she is." One yelled, "The street rat again." Nija gasped and turned to run, but James stepped in front of her. "Leave her alone," he said firmly. "She's not your problem. Human." The guard growled. "She's an orphan. No parent, no ID, no right to be in public." "She's not alone now," James said. "She's with me." The guards narrowed their eyes but didn't argue. Instead, they left with angry looks, disappearing back into the crowd. When James turned around, the girl was gone too. She had run away while he was talking. All that was left was the small metal ring. And something else, a soft doll made of cloth and wires, lying where she had sat. James picked it up carefully, brushing off the dirt. It had a stitched mouth and mismatched eyes, clearly handmade. Tucked inside the doll's chest was a tiny photo. Almost faded, it showed Nisha younger, smiling beside a tall alien woman with tired but kind eyes. Was that her mother? James stood there, holding the doll and the photo, his heart heavy. Why would a child ask a stranger to marry her mom? What had happened to them that made such a thing seem like hope? The sky above the market was turning purple with dusk, and the wind grew sharper, colder. James looked around, but Naya was gone. Lost in the sea of strangers and lights, he slipped the photo and doll into his pocket. He didn't know her story yet, but something inside told him. He needed to find her, not because of the strange question she asked, but because of the pain in her eyes when she asked it. This wasn't just about a lost girl. This was about something deeper, something broken in a world that let children beg strangers to save their lives. James took one last look around the market, then started walking. He didn't know where to start, but he wouldn't stop until he found her again. Somehow, he knew. This was the beginning of something big. James couldn't sleep that night. The little alien girl's voice echoed in his head. "Will you marry my mom?" It wasn't just the strange question. It was the way she said it, like it was her last chance to survive. He lay on his small rented bed in the trade station. The doll clutched in one hand, the faded photo in the other. He stared at the photo again, the child's face smiling next to a woman who had strong but tired eyes. There was a name written on the back in a shaky alien script, barely readable. Lorea, that had to be her mother. The next morning, James returned to the market early. It was less crowded, and cold wind blew through the narrow paths, making his breath turn white in the air. He asked every vendor he saw, showing the photo, "Have you seen this girl?" Most shook their heads, some looked away nervously, and a few simply refused to talk. Finally, a small alien boy, sitting by a stack of broken machines, whispered, "You're looking for Naya." James turned. "You know her?" The boy nodded. Quickly glancing around, she hides near the scrap tunnels where the pipes leak steam. "But don't tell the guards." James thanked him and left immediately, heading towards the tunnels near the edge of the lower district. It was damp, noisy, and filled with the smell of burning metal and rust. He searched corner after corner until he heard soft coughing behind a large trash bin. He stepped carefully around it. And there she was, Nisha, curled up in a dirty blanket. Trying to keep warm, her small body shaking, when she saw him, her eyes grew wide. "But she didn't run, sir," she whispered, her voice weak. "Did you come back for me?" James knelt beside her, holding out the doll and the photo. "You've dropped these," he said. "And I have questions." She hugged the doll tightly, tears filling her eyes. "Is your mother's name Larea?" James asked. She nodded. "Yes, my mom. She was a healer. She helped people. But now, they say she's a traitor. Where is she?" "She hides in the deep ruins," Naya said. "Far under the tunnels, near the old reactor. I'm not allowed to go there anymore." James looked at her. "Why did you ask me to marry your mother?" Nisha held the doll close, looked away, and whispered, "Because if no one marries her, they will take me. I'm not bonded to any guardian." James frowned. "What does that mean?" Chaya explained slowly. "On this planet, if a child has no bonded parent, they belong to the state. They send us away to work camps. Or worse," her voice broke. "They took my cousin last cycle. He was only a little older than me. We never saw him again." James felt his chest tighten. Nia continued, "If a human bonds with us, they can't take me. The law protects human-linked families now. That's why I asked you." She looked up at him. "I didn't mean to be bad. I was just scared." James shook his head. "You weren't bad. You were brave." He stood up slowly. "Take me to your mother." They traveled quietly through hidden tunnels, broken corridors, and metal halls forgotten by most. The deeper they went, the darker it became, only lit by flickering red lights and the soft glow of leaking plasma tubes. Finally, they reached a wide chamber, part of an old reactor room, long dead. There, sitting beside a glowing fire made of scrap wood, was a tall alien woman with long silver hair and glowing yellow eyes. She stood quickly when she saw Nisha and James. "Nisha?" She ran forward and held the child tightly, then looked at James with suspicion. "Who are you?" she asked coldly. "I'm James," he replied calmly. "Your daughter asked me to marry you." Larea's eyes narrowed. "She what?" Nia quickly explained. "Mama, he's kind. He helped me." I told him everything. Larea sighed deeply, rubbing her forehead. "You shouldn't ask strangers for such things, Naya. She was trying to save herself." James said softly, "Maybe even save you." Larea looked at James carefully now, her hard eyes softening just a little. "I don't know who you are, human, or what you want, but I don't need saving," she said. "Only my daughter does." James held out the photo. "Then help me understand." "I don't want anything, except to help you both." There was a long silence, only the crackle of the fire between them. Finally, Larea spoke, her voice low and tired. "They call me a criminal because I healed the wrong people. Refugees, rebels. Anyone who needed help. The state doesn't forgive kindness if it's not under their control." James sat down beside the fire, watching mother and daughter huddle together. He didn't have all the answers yet, but he knew one thing for sure: he wasn't walking away from this. Lorea sat quietly near the small fire, her arms wrapped around her daughter. She didn't speak for a long time, just stared at James with cautious eyes. James understood. She had no reason to trust him. He was just a human stranger who had appeared with her child, talking about marriage, but James wasn't here to trick anyone. He just couldn't forget the way Nisha had looked at him, like he was her last hope. The underground shelter was dim and quiet, made from old reactor walls and broken metal beams. Steam hissed from pipes overhead, and the floor was dusty with ash. James stayed seated a few feet away from them, waiting. Finally, Lorea spoke, her voice calm but guarded. "You shouldn't have followed her," she said. "It's dangerous being near me." "She came to me," James replied, "and she asked for something no child should ever have to ask." Lorea glanced down at Nisha, who had already fallen asleep in her arms. Exhausted, "I taught her to be strong, but not like this," she whispered. "Not to beg strangers." "She didn't beg," James said. "She hoped." Lorea looked at him again, this time with a mix of sadness and something else. "You don't understand our world," she said. "On this planet, hope is punished." James leaned forward a little, his voice firm but gentle. "Then help me understand it. Start with you. Why are they hunting you?" Lorea sighed and laid Nisha gently on a small mat before standing up. She walked to a shelf made of scrap metal, picked up a bottle of old water, and took a sip before answering. "I used to be a healer," she said. "I worked in a clean clinic. In the upper cities, I treated officials, soldiers, the rich. But then the war came. Refugees arrived hurt, sick, starving. They were told they didn't matter. I didn't listen. I treated them anyway. That's when they called me a traitor." James nodded slowly. "So they sent guards. They sent hunters," she said sharply. "I escaped, barely. But Naya, she's the only reason I'm still running." She looked at the sleeping child, her expression softening. "I can take pain, suffering, even death," Lorea said. But not losing her, James stood up, walking to her side. "Then, let me help." "Why?" she asked, her voice tight. "Why would a human risk anything for us?" "Because I've seen too much of the galaxy," James replied, "and it's full of people who turn away. I don't want to be one of them." Lorea stared at him for a long time. "Do you even know what bonding means in our culture?" James shook his head. "Only that your daughter said it would protect her." Lorea gave a small, dry laugh. "It's not just paperwork. It's not fake. When we bond, we link our minds, our memories. It's deep, permanent." James was quiet, absorbing her words. "So it's not just a marriage," he said. "It's a soul connection." She nodded. "Yes, and that's why." "I can't let you do it." James blinked, surprised. "What?" "But you just said." "I said it would protect her," Lorea interrupted. "Not you. The moment they find out you're helping me, they'll brand you a traitor too." She walked back to the fire, her voice softer now. "I won't let another life be ruined because of me." "But what about Nisha?" James asked, stepping closer. "If you don't let someone help her, she'll be taken." Lorea closed her eyes, pain crossing her face. "I know," she whispered. "Every day I wake up afraid they'll find her before I can stop them." James clenched his fists, frustrated, but calm. "I didn't come here for rewards," he said. "I came because your daughter trusted me. And now? I trust her judgment." Lorea looked up at him again, her expression unreadable. Then quietly she asked, "Would you really bond with someone like me? A hunted mother? A criminal in hiding?" James nodded slowly. "If it means saving that child's future." "Then yes." Before she could say more, there was a sudden sound outside. A clang of metal-heavy boots on the upper grate. Lorea froze, and her hand went straight to the wall. Grabbing a small energy knife hidden in a pipe, James grabbed a rod lying nearby and stood ready. The sound faded, then disappeared. Lorea relaxed, but only a little. "They're getting closer," she whispered. "We don't have much time." James looked at her and then at Nija, still sleeping peacefully, unaware of the danger waiting above. "We need to act fast," he said, "before they take everything away." Lorea looked into the shadows for a long time, then finally nodded. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "if you're sure. We will begin the bond." James exhaled slowly, knowing things were about to change forever, not just for him, but for a child who asked for something so simple, a chance to stay with her mother. And now he had promised to help make that happen, no matter what it cost. The walls of the old tunnel were cracked, rusted, and covered in faded signs from a time long gone. James followed Naya quietly, watching her small feet move quickly through the dusty path. She didn't talk much. She just pointed now and then, showing which turn to take. They had been walking for over 20 minutes through hidden paths under the city. The deeper they went, the warmer it became. Steam poured from broken pipes, and soft red lights blinked. In the ceiling, finally, they reached a metal door with wires hanging from it. Nija tapped on the door 3 times, then waited. Nothing happened. Then, slowly, the door creaked open, and a tall, alien woman stepped out of the shadows. Her skin was smooth and pale silver, her eyes glowing a soft yellow in the dark. She held a long metal staff in one hand and wore a cloak made of old fabric and armor parts. She looked at James first, then down at Nija. "Nija," she said with relief in her voice. "I told you to stay hidden. I brought someone," Nija whispered. Stepping closer to her, "He helped me. He wants to help us." The woman's eyes narrowed. She looked at James sharply, her voice cold. "Who are you? And why are you following my daughter?" James raised his hands calmly. "I'm James. I didn't follow her. She found me. In the market," she told me. "She needs someone to marry. Her mom." There was a pause, thick with silence. Then the woman sighed and turned away. "Come inside," she said, not looking back. The room inside was dark and small, filled with old tech parts, broken chairs, and a small fire made from power cells and scrap. Lorea sat near the fire, pulling her hood back. Her long silver hair fell across her shoulders, and her tired face came into view. James could see pain in her eyes, pain from years of hiding and worry. He stayed standing, unsure what to say next. "Sit," Lorea said, not unkindly, but firm. James sat on a metal box, watching as Nija curled up next to her mother. Holding the doll tightly, Lorea looked at him again. "My daughter shouldn't have asked you that. It wasn't fair. She was scared," James said softly. "She didn't beg. She was desperate." Lorea's lips pressed into a thin line. She looked at the fire and then at her child. "She knows the rules of this world. Unbonded children are taken by the state. They vanish. No questions. No mercy." James nodded. "She told me." Lorea raised an eyebrow. "And yet, here you are. A human, offering to bond with a fugitive alien healer. Why? Because your child still believes." "In hope," James replied, "and I won't let that be punished." For a moment, Lorea said nothing. She just watched the fire crackle and spark. Then she spoke again, her voice lower, softer. "Bonding isn't just a signature. Not here. It's a ritual, a mental link. We see each other's memories. We share feelings, regrets, pain, all of it." James blinked, surprised. "You see inside each other's mind." "Yes," Lorea said. "That's why it's sacred and dangerous. One wrong match can break you." James looked at her, steady and calm. "I'm not afraid of truth." She studied him for a long time, as if reading his soul. Then she said, "You don't even know me. Then let me know you," he said gently. "Let me understand. For Naya." "And for you?" Loria stood up and walked toward the wall. She pressed a hidden button and a small screen lit up, showing a younger version of herself in a healer's robe. Smiling with patience in a clean clinic, "I used to help people," she said. "But when I started healing rebels, they called me a traitor. They closed my clinic. Burned it. I ran with Naya before they could take her." James watched the screen, then looked back at her. "You did the right thing. Even if the law says otherwise." Loria gave a bitter smile. "The law only cares about silence, not justice." Suddenly, Nija stirred, her small voice cutting the silence. "Mom, are you going to marry him?" Loria turned slowly toward her daughter, sadness and strength in her voice. "I don't know, little one," she said softly, "but I will listen. And I will think." James leaned forward, his voice firm now. "We don't have time. The guards are getting closer. They know Nia is unbonded. It's only a matter of days before they come again." Lurea looked down. She knew he was right. "I'll need to prepare," she said, "and you'll need to pass the trial." "Trial?" James asked, confused. Loria nodded. "If you want to bond, you'll have to face the bond flame. Only then will I decide." James didn't know what that was, but he agreed. Whatever it was, he would do it, not just to save a child, but because somewhere deep in his heart, he knew this was already his family, even if they didn't know it yet. James had only heard stories about the Council of Order, the cold alien authority that ruled this world, but now he was standing in front of one of its gates, stall, dark, and surrounded by glowing red towers. He looked small compared to the wide iron doors and the armored guards who watched every move with sharp yellow eyes. Behind him, the city buzzed like normal, but in front of him, everything felt heavy. He was here to do something no human had ever tried, to make a deal with the same people who wanted Lorea dead. And Naya stolen away. The guards stopped him. At the entrance, their long staffs humming with energy. "State your purpose." "Offworlder," one of them barked. "I need to speak with the prefect." James said calmly, "It's about the girl." The unbonded one. The guards glanced at each other. After a moment of silence, one tapped a device, and the doors opened with a hiss. James stepped inside. Heart steady, but mind racing. The hall was tall and cold, lined with crystal lights and strange alien writings. At the far end sat a tall figure on a metal throne, Prefect Sarn. His skin was dark like iron, his face covered in marks of power, and his eyes glowed like fire. He did not stand, did not smile, only stared at James like he was already dead. "So?" Sarn said, voice like a growl, "You are the human who claims the traitor's child." James nodded. "Her name is Nia. She's not a traitor. She's a child." Sarn raised a bony finger. "She is unbonded. That makes her state property. And her mother is a wanted criminal. I want to bond with the mother," James said clearly. "Then the child will no longer be unbonded." A cold silence followed. Then a slow, mocking smile grew on Sarn's face. A human, offering marriage to a criminal alien. What a joke. James didn't blink. It's not a joke. It's law. Bonding grants protection, even to unbonded children. Sarn stood slowly, stepping down from his throne, towering over James. "You are correct. By law. But laws can be bent, changed, broken," he said, voice dripping with threat. James met his eyes, then changed this one. "Or deal with the shame of hurting a child for your pride." The hall went still. The guards stiffened. One even placed his hand on his weapon, but Sarn laughed. Not loud, but sharp, like ice cracking. "Very well," he said. "You want to bond with the traitor, Lorea? You must prove yourself first." James tilted his head. "How?" Sarn walked in a slow circle around him. "There's a ritual," he said. "The bond flame. It shows truth. If your heart is weak, or your mind hides lies. It will burn you, and if I pass." Sarn leaned in close, his breath cold. "Then you may keep the girl." For now, later that night, James returned to the ruins where Lurea and Nia waited. He found them sitting close to a soft fire. Nija was drawing on the wall with a broken wire, her little face calm again. He sat down beside them and shared everything: the meeting, the deal, the bond flame. Lurea went silent. Her face showed no fear, only quiet acceptance. "I told you it wouldn't be simple," she said softly. James smiled a little. "Simple things aren't worth it. You and Naya are." Lurea looked at him with tired eyes that seemed to see everything. "You understand what the flame does. Yes, it burns away the lies," James said, "and shows who I really am." Lurea nodded. "Many don't survive it." James shrugged. "I'm still going to try." Nia crawled into his lap, looking up, with hope shining in her eyes. "You'll win, right?" she whispered. James gently patted her head. "I'll do my best. For you and your mom." The next day, before the sun rose, James stood in a round stone chamber deep under the council tower. In the center was a large bowl of glowing blue fire calm, but alive. Sarn stood at the edge with 3 witnesses. Araya and Naya were not allowed inside, only to watch from above, behind a glass wall. James stepped forward as the fire flickered higher. Almost sensing him, Sarn raised his voice. "Step into the bond flame, off-worlder. Let it see your truth." James took a deep breath, then stepped into the blue fire. Pain hit him like lightning, not in his body, but in his mind. Flashes of memory appeared: his mother's death, his failures, his regrets, the people he couldn't save during the war. Tears rolled down his face, but he didn't fall. Then new memories showed: helping the weak, holding the dying, lifting strangers, smiling with Nija and looking into Lurea's eyes. The fire began to change, color turning golden, then white, then clear as glass. It didn't burn him now, it held him. A gentle warmth moved through his chest, as if the fire had judged him and found him true. When it was over, he stood in silence, covered in light, eyes wide, heart still racing. Sarn stepped forward, staring with disbelief. "The flame accepts you," he said flatly. "I do not. But the law is the law. You are now bonded up above." Behind the glass, Nija jumped with joy, and Lurea placed her hand over her heart. They both knew something had changed, and now they were no longer alone. The air was still. The city above didn't know it yet, but something powerful had happened in the fire below. James had survived the bond flame. Not only survived, but been accepted. That meant something deeper than a signature or law. It meant a soul had spoken truth, and another soul had listened down to the quiet tunnels below the council chambers. Lurea stood waiting, her hands trembling slightly. She had waited years in fear, waited months in the dark. And now, she waited for something different. Hope. The heavy door creaked open. James stepped through slowly. His clothes still singed from the flame, but his eyes, they were brighter now, full of something new. Lurea stared at him in silence. Then spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "You passed." James nodded. "The flame showed everything I was afraid to face." Lurea stepped forward, slowly. Their eyes locked, not as strangers, not as enemies, but as to people who now shared a thread of something sacred. "We must finish the bonding ritual," she said. James blinked. "I thought the fire was the ritual." She gave a small, almost sad smile. "No, that was just the test. The bond must still be sealed." With truth and choice, that evening, they met inside the stone circle, an ancient chamber once used by Lurea's people for sacred unions, now forgotten and buried under broken metal and sand. The room was lit by soft blue torches. The air smelled of herbs and warm minerals. and in the center stood a small platform made of stone and crystal. Nyjah sat nearby, watching with big eyes, her hands holding the doll James had once returned. She didn't say anything, but her smile said enough. This was the family she had wished for. Loraya placed 2 drops of glowing serum on each of their wrists. This is called Verisha, she explained. It opens the heart. Only the truth can be spoken now. James felt the warmth spread through his arm and chest. Suddenly, his thoughts became clearer, lighter. And he could feel a strange connection beginning to form like soft strings tying them together. Loraya stood in front of him. She placed her hand gently over his heart and asked the ancient words, "Do you offer your truth, your past, and your path forward, not to own me, but to walk beside me?" James took her hand. "I do. I offer my failures, my hopes, my scars, and my strength not to save you, but to stand with you." The room filled with a soft hum, the crystals on the walls glowing brighter. The bond was forming. Now it was Laura's turn. James stepped back, and she looked deep into his eyes, her voice shaking slightly. "I have lived in hiding. I have done things I regret. I carry the wounds of betrayal and loss, but in you, I see something I never expected again. Peace. Do you accept my broken parts, even if they never fully heal?" James answered without pause. "Yes, I accept all of you, not as a perfect being, but as a mother, a fighter, a woman worth standing beside." Suddenly, a soft light connected their wrists, the bond completed. But this was not a bond of law. It was a bond of spirit. James gasped softly as a flood of feelings moved through him. He felt her grief, her joy, her fear, her endless love for Nyjah. He saw her memories running through ruined streets, kissing her baby's forehead during a bombing, stitching wounds with trembling hands, and hoping someone, someday, would understand her. Tears fell from both of them. And for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt alone. From the side, Nyjah stood up and walked to them. She hugged both tightly, burying her face in James's chest. "Now we're really a family," she whispered. "I knew it could happen." James laughed gently. "Yeah, little one." It happened. Loraya rested her head on James's shoulder, her voice calm now, strong again. "We have a lot to do. The council may accept this bond, but that doesn't mean the world will." James looked at her. "I didn't bond with you to run," he said. "I bonded with you to fight with you." Outside the hidden chamber, an old sensor light blinked red, a silent alarm triggered by unseen eyes. The council would come again. But next time, they would not face a helpless mother and a child. They would face a family, bound by truth, and stronger than any law. The stars above the city burned red that night, not because of the sky itself, but because ships from the council hovered above. Watching, small patrol drones floated between towers and sharp lights scanned the streets below. The council was not celebrating James and Loraya's bond. They were preparing to erase it. Deep under the surface, in the tunnels where warmth still lingered, Loraya quickly packed supplies. James held Nyjah close, helping her zip up her tiny coat. "Are we going to fly away?" she asked softly. "No, sweet one," Loraya answered, her voice calm but firm. "We're going to stand our ground, but not here." James checked the map they had drawn in the sand earlier. "There's an old rebel bunker near the edge of the canyon," he said. "It has shielding, enough to block tracking signals." Loraya nodded, "And enough food for at least 3 days. That's all we need," James replied. 3 days to figure out what comes next." They moved quickly through forgotten passages. James carried Nyjah on his back, while Loraya led the way, her glowing staff lighting the dark. Now and then, they would stop listening to the faint hum of council patrols above. At one point, a scanner drone hovered just meters above them. They ducked behind a metal cart, holding their breaths. Nia's tiny hand held James's shirt tight. The drone blinked red, then turned blue, and passed by. James let out a slow breath. That was close. Too close, Lorea whispered. Finally, they reached the old bunker. It was built into a cliffside, half covered by roots and broken. Stone dot inside, the air was thick with dust. But the walls held strong. James placed Nia down and looked around. There were small rooms, a generator, and enough supplies to last a little while. Lorea activated the shield wall. A soft hum filled the room, the sound of safety, for now. Later that night, they sat together around a small heater. Nia ate quietly, using her doll as a napkin. James and Lorea sat nearby, speaking in low voices. "She's stronger than I ever was," James said. "She's stronger than both of us," Lorea replied with a faint smile. Then her expression changed. "There's something I haven't told you," she said. James looked at her. "What is it?" Keela lowered her eyes. "The council doesn't just want to erase me. They want to break the law itself. If they destroy our bond record, they'll claim it never happened." James frowned. "But the bond flame, only 3 witnesses were there," Lorea said. "One of them is loyal to Sarn." James stood up, anger rising in his chest. "So they plan to make you vanish again?" Lorea nodded. "Unless we go public." James paused. "What do you mean?" She looked up, eyes steady, theirs. "A broadcast tower in the outer fields. It's old, but still working if we can reach it. We can send the bond data and proof of the ritual across every channel planet-wide." James thought for a moment. Once the people see it, the council can't hide it anymore. They'd be forced to acknowledge it. "Yes," Lorea whispered. "It's our only chance." From the side, Nia's voice rose gently. "I want them to see. I want them to know you're my family now." The next morning, the sky outside was orange, the sun rising behind clouds of smoke. The council had begun their search and silence mission, hunting for them with machines and mercenaries. James secured his gear. Lorea wore her old healer's robes, now mixed with armor. Scraps. She looked like a warrior and a mother all at once. Nia stayed behind in the bunker, hidden under the shield, protected by sensors and a backup system James had installed overnight. "I'll be fine," she said bravely, hugging them both. "You come back. Promise." James kissed her forehead. "We promise." They left quickly, cutting through rocks and ash-covered fields. The wind was hot and full of static. The tower could be seen in the distance, tall, broken, but still standing. But then, the sky roared. 3 council drones dropped from the clouds, their engines howling like monsters. James pulled out his old blaster. Lorea raised her staff. The drones fired. They rolled behind cover. "Sparks flew," James shouted. "We can't hold them long, then we don't." Lorea cried. "We run." They dashed forward, dodging blasts. Smoke and fire followed them across the field. Finally, they reached the tower base. James punched in the access code from the old map. The doors opened just in time, and they slipped inside as the drones circled above. The tower control room was dusty but alive. Lorea connected the bond crystal to the console. James powered up the transmitter. A red light blinked, then a green one. "Broadcast ready." Lorea placed her hand on the button. "Once I press this, everything changes." James stepped beside her. "Then let's change it together." They pressed the button, and the screen filled with light images of the bond flame. Their shared words, their truth. The message began to play across every channel, from cities to farms, from soldiers to students. The planet stopped to watch. A human and an alien standing as one. Above the tower, the council ships paused. The world had seen, and now they would have to choose sides. The broadcast had been sent, and the world watched in silence. across cities, villages, military bases, and even dark council halls. The image of James and Lorea standing together filled every screen. Their bond real, their words raw and full of truth. Their love unspoken but clear. For the first time in years, the people saw what the council tried to hide, that courage could come from the broken. That love could exist between species and that one child's. Hope could shake an entire system at the top of the broadcast tower. James stood by the window, looking out across the fields. Black smoke still rose in the distance. But the skies above had grown quiet. The drones were gone. And no ships had attacked. Lorea sat nearby, her back against the wall, breathing slowly. Recovering from the run and the fight, they had done it, not with weapons, but with the truth. Back in the hidden bunker, Nia watched the broadcast end, her small hands clutching the doll tighter than ever. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not from fear, but from pride. They did it, she whispered. They really did it. Hours passed. No alarms, no soldiers. No arrest squads. Instead, voices. James and Lorea stepped outside the tower, half expecting council guards or blasters, but instead, they saw a small group walking toward them. 3 traders, 2 alien farmers, 1 old soldier with a metal arm, and all of them held out their hands, palms, open, a peaceful gesture. We saw the truth, the old soldier said. I've been silent too long. Not anymore. The trader nodded. You reminded us that rules aren't always right. Another added, if a child believed you could be a family, who are we to doubt her? Lorea looked at James, eyes wide, almost afraid to believe it. And James smiled. It's beginning. By evening, hundreds had seen the message, and by morning, thousands. Even inside the council chambers, change had started. 2 of the 3 witnesses who had seen the bond flame spoke out, saying the ritual had been pure, the bond real, and that the council had no right to erase it. The world whispered first, then shouted. Then marched thought for the first time in years. People stood up for each other, not as alien versus human, but as families, as neighbors, as people. 10 days later, a new law passed. The Unity Bond Act. It protected mixed-species families, recognized emotional bonds beyond borders, and punished any official who used force to break them. James, Lorea, and Nia were no longer fugitives. They were now called Founders of the Flame. They moved into a small home in the green hills of Sector 8, a quiet place with sun, wind, and the sound of rivers nearby. Nia attended school with other children, some alien, some human, all laughing and learning. Together, James started working with other bonded families, helping them register, stay safe, and feel seen. Lorea reopened a healing clinic, her gift no longer something to be hidden, but something to celebrate. One afternoon, James sat in the field behind their home. Nia ran circles around him, holding a kite made of cloth and wires. She laughed loud and free, no longer the scared, starving girl in the cold market. Lorea walked out with drinks, her long hair blowing gently in the wind. James looked at her with a peaceful smile. Hard to believe all of this started with a question from a child. Lorea sat beside him. She believed in something we had forgotten. James nodded. Family? Later that evening, as the sun set, Nia came up with a drawing she had made. It showed 3 figures, a woman with long hair, a man with dark eyes, and a child standing between them, all holding hands under 2 suns. She pointed at the words she had written on the top. Our family, our future. James looked at her, his heart full. You're the one who gave us that future. He said, Why? I giggled. I just asked a question. Lorea leaned in. Yes, but sometimes, one question is enough to change everything. And so, under the twin suns of a once divided world, a new kind of family was born, not by blood, not by law, but by choice, by courage, by love.